these fringe factions that are trying to push this agenda on America are weaponizing it in such a way that if you dare ask a question, God forbid you disagree, you're going to be targeted and they're going to come after you hammer and tong. This book is going to make a lot of people really upset because it deals with the truth. It deals with reality and the facts that a lot of people don't want the public to know. This is probably going to be regarded as the most dangerous book that's published in 2024. I'm watching what's happening in America, and it's not okay with me. I feel like this country is being pushed by fringe factions that are trying to push it over some cliff, trying to drive it in some direction that's not who America has always been, not who America is meant to be, and they're trying to hijack the narrative, and people are intimidated. People are 3 times less likely to stand up and speak their mind today than they were in 1950. Wow. 3 times as much because of all of this cancel culture and we'll come after you and all of that if you disagree with those that have the biggest mouth, the biggest megaphone. And somebody's got to stand up and push back, and that somebody's going to be me. And I don't think that I can turn this tide by myself, but I hope I can inspire a whole lot of people to join me in this and say, wait a minute, stop. What about common sense? What about science? What about history? What about the things that have made this country what it is for the last 250 years? And look, I don't think America's perfect. I love this country enough to admit the flaws, fallacies, and all, and still love this country. We've got to stand up and speak up if we want to keep this country, and I love this country. I stand up when the flag goes by. Yeah. I support our military. I support our law enforcement people in this country. I believe in America. I believe in a meritocracy where you work hard and you get ahead. And that doesn't mean everybody starts in the same place. Right. They don't. We have inequities in this country. And you all start where you start, but if you got a hill to climb, this is a great country to climb it on. Yes. I just feel like somebody needs to speak up about this. And I think the heart and soul of this country is the family. Mm-hmm. That's the backbone of America. And I think family in America is under attack. It is under attack. That's why the subtitle of this book is, this is a prescriptive book, how you can stand strong for America's soul and sanity. Those are big words, soul and sanity. There's a collective personality in America. You know, I spent a lot of time working with juries, a big part of my career, and I always said if there's 12 people in the jury box, there's at least 13 personalities over there. There you go. Wow. You know, 12 individuals and then one collective personality. And actually, it was more than one collective because there'd sometimes be little groups, but there's a collective personality in America. And, you know, there's a collective personality in Dallas, and it's different than the collective personality in San Francisco. And it's different than the collective personality in New York City and Omaha. Communities have personalities, don't you agree?
Sure.
And America has a collective personality, and people are messing with that, trying to redefine it and change it. And we need to stand up and say, no, you're not going to tell me. Look, you're either going to run your life or your life's going to run you. Mm-hmm. And I want people to be who they are on purpose. And this book tells people how to do that. There's so much going on in this country that's not happening that it wakes me up in the middle of the night. Mm-hmm. And I said, I have to write this book. I have to write down what I'm talking about.
You know, be you on purpose. First of all, everyone has to realize they have a purpose. Mm-hmm. There's not one soul that is alive today that God didn't birth you with a purpose. God created Adam and Eve. He created the family, and it broke down from there, from the very beginning, right, because of sin. But the family unit, I think everything you say goes back to the family, no matter to where it starts.
It's the building block. You've got to say, all right, what is this country built on? And this was an agricultural country, right? This was a farming country.
Yeah.
The family worked together every day, right? And they would take their meals together. They would worship together. They would work together and come in from the fields and have lunch together and go back out together. And then that changed. Then there was another big revolution. I think the biggest revolution since the Industrial Revolution, and it happened in 08, 09. And that was the advent of the smartphone.
Wow.
When people started walking around with a computer in their hand and a laptop. There's more power in those laptops than we had when we made the moonshot. We put a man on the moon. We didn't have as much computing power as people are walking around with in their hands today. That's how powerful those are. And it changed the world. It's as big a revolution as the Industrial Revolution. And people haven't paid attention to the unintended consequences of that. Technology's great. I'm not saying it's not. We all benefit from it. I mean, look at this set. Look at the images that are up and how we're reaching people right now over the airwaves. Technology's great, but there are consequences that come with it, and you've got to acknowledge those. Teenagers, when I turned 16, I mean, I was headed for the DMV, right? Yeah. Get my driver's license. You have freedom. You can move around. But now, they're in no hurry. They date later. They have fewer friends. They're less involved in the real world because their heads down looking at this screen. They're watching people live their lives instead of getting up and living their own lives. Right. And you know the problem with that? Is those lives they're watching being lived are fictions. Yeah. Those aren't real. People are producing those, and then they compare themselves to that, and they go, oh, my life is terrible compared to that glamorous life. Well, those lives aren't real. Those are fiction. And so they get on these social media platforms that are controlled by algorithms who feed them all of this toxic data, and the companies know that, but they continue to do it. And nobody's doing anything about it. You can, I have studies in the book that show you can put a profile of a 13-year-old girl on TikTok, and within 3 minutes, they're feeding her toxic, damaging information to her mental health. You can put the same profile up, and instead of it just saying Lauren, you say, Lauren, lose weight. The amount of toxic information that she now gets goes up 10x.
My goodness.
And why? Because they've learned that people click on things that upset them. And so instead of showing a box of kittens, they'll click on that a little bit, but you show them things that upset them, it engages them and they click more, so they get more ad money. So they're trading your child's mental health for clicks, which is ad revenue. They know it and they do it, and parents aren't aware. And if they are aware, they're not standing up and saying and doing anything about it. And I need to educate them about that, show them, demystify these algorithms, and that's part of showing them how to stand up for America's soul and sanity. Recognize what's happening. Their children are under attack. They're being babysat electronically by these devices. They need to get off the devices and become part of the family again. That's not what's happening. And we're seeing depression, anxiety, and loneliness at the highest level since they started keeping records. And you know when it spiked? 08, 09, and 10, when these devices showed up and kids stopped participating in the world and started living on devices. I started Dr. Phil as a platform in 2002. And my pledge at the time was, I'm going to talk about things that matter to people who care. It wasn't going to be what I wanted to talk about. I want to listen. I want to read the mail that comes in. I want to have people tell me what they want to talk about, because I want to talk about things that matter to the people who care about those things. And the things that matter have changed across time.
Right.
When I first started, the first text message had never been sent. There were no text messages. There were no social media platforms. Email was something that certain businesses used occasionally. They were on DOS system, but it wasn't something that people used. And then that changed. And all of a sudden, I had to start dealing with things like cyber bullying. You know, you used to have bullies that would be in the cafeteria or behind the gym or on the bus docks at school. Somebody could go home, at least they had the night to get away from it. Now, we're seeing children getting bullied at school. They go home, they get in a chat room or a study group room, they're still getting bullied. They could change schools, bullies follow them to the new school. So we started seeing children committing suicide because they couldn't escape the pressure of bullies. We started seeing predators that weren't in a raincoat at the edge of the playground saying, you know, you want some candy, little kid? Now they're on the internet and pretending to be a peer when in fact they're a 45-year-old pedophile luring kids out their bedroom windows to meet them in the middle of the night. So I'm evolving what I'm dealing with based on what people are writing in saying, my child's running off in the middle of the night and meeting people that aren't who they say they are. They've been abducted, they've this, that, or they took pictures and put them on the internet. Now they're there forever. I don't know what's going on. They're getting bullied. The whole world has changed. Well, now I'm seeing a whole different set of challenges. They're buying drugs on the internet like they order food for delivery. They get delivered to their house. The problem is 100% of the pills they get on social media platforms are counterfeit. 40% of them are laced with lethal doses of fentanyl. And they say we had 100,000 fentanyl overdoses. No, we didn't. We had 100,000 poisonings. Those aren't overdoses, they're poisonings. It was just about a little less than 2 years ago, they busted one pill mill just across the border from San Diego that was turning out 80 million counterfeit pills a month. Not a year, a month. And then we've got borders that are open, it's as open as a sieve, and they're arresting people with backpacks that have 10,000 pills in them. And out of those, 4,000 of them are deadly. And they think they're getting somewhere around 10% of what's coming into the country. Why is this not on a 3-inch screamer headline on every paper in the United States? Because it's become a political football. This is not a political book. This is a cultural book.
Right.
This is a family book. This is a parenting book. This is a call to action. And as you're saying, you intuitively know some of these things are out of balance and out of whack, but you don't have the information to make an articulate argument. Well, now you do.
Yeah.
Now you have the information. Now you have the evidence. You have the empirical data. Let's look at the results. Let's look at the data and deal with what the facts are. And this book is going to make a lot of people really upset because it deals with the truth. It deals with reality and the facts that a lot of people don't want the public to know. This is probably going to be regarded as the most dangerous book that's published in 2024. People are going to say this is the most dangerous book published in 2024.
My goodness.
I love it. I love this right here. This is a quote.
Okay.
Disagreements are quickly labeled hate speech.
Wow.
We have weaponized the word phobic, which is what you are called if you disagree with a radical position or ask an innocent question.
That's so true.
I can't believe I need to state something this obvious, but you are not phobic because you disagree. You are not phobic for asking questions. You may be curious, you may be doubtful, yet you may be a lot of things. But phobic, isn't that a huge leap that reflects cult-like intolerance and of dependent thought and healthy questioning attitude? So that's why at the beginning of this program, you said so many people are afraid to say something,
Yeah.
to ask a question.
Listen, it's been said by someone other than me that I would rather have questions I can't answer than answers I can't question.
Yeah.
And when you're in a situation that there are answers given that you can't question, something is way out of balance, right?
Yeah.
If somebody stands up and makes a pronouncement and you raise your hand and say, I have a question about that, say, hater.
Yeah.
And that's what happens.
Yeah.
And you get labeled and you get drummed out and people get fired. There have been more professors disciplined, suspended, or fired in the last few years than have had that result than since the McCarthy era. And why? Because they're teaching the truth. They're teaching the facts. And this, I call it the tyranny of the fringe.
Right.
These fringe factions that are trying to push this agenda on America are weaponizing it in such a way that if you dare ask a question, God forbid you disagree, you're going to be targeted and they're going to come after you hammer and tong. Well, when hundreds of years of empirical science say things are one way and all of a sudden this small pocket of fringe dwellers decide they want it to be different, so they just pronounce it so, sorry,
Yeah.
I'll debate anybody, anywhere, on anything in this book. I invite that.
Yeah.
Where did debate go
Yeah.
in this world? We used to have
Talk about
come,
it.
let us reason together is, scriptural. And for some reason, we have accepted a society in which we are frozen in our position on one side of the street, yelling our position to frozen people on the other side of the street. Meanwhile, everyone is just sitting there screaming positions at each other. And everyone has seen at the Supreme Court, at this, someone just yelling their position like a lunatic. And that is what we're trying to fix. Dr. Phil, you have the professional training, the television experience to take and help us learn what healthy debate is.
I want to bring both sides, or if there are four sides, and let's talk about it. And you know why that's okay with me? Because I'm not trying to win an argument. I'm trying to solve problems.
Yeah.
Sam Rayburn, former Texan, former Speaker of the House, said, any jackass can kick down a barn, but it takes a carpenter to build one.
Yeah.
I want to be a carpenter. I want to help people be a carpenter. I want to just knock stuff down. Let's solve the problems. We don't need to just yell and win the argument. Let's solve the problems here. And that's why I say I want to teach people how to stand strong for America's soul,
Yes.
for America's sanity.
Yeah.
And you do that with facts. And there are people that are very concerned about what's being taught in the schools right now. But you know what my advice to those parents are? Is do your homework and don't go to the school and run up the stairs like your hair's on fire, accusing people of doing stuff. Do your homework, get your facts, go down there and find out what's going on, and affect change. That's what needs to happen. If you don't like what's going on, find out first off what's going on. Be sure you have your facts, and know if we have people down there talking to your children about things you don't want them talking about, find out if in fact that's happening, who's doing it, what the policies are. You have an Open Information Act. You can find out what their protocols and materials are. And once you've got the information, then you can affect change. And if you stay the course, they can only yell so long. Mm-hmm. And then pretty soon you say, okay, got it. Now answer my question. Mm-hmm. What are you doing with my child? As a Christian, I have raised my family based on the core teachings that I received growing up. And I always knew that the family was so important. And it's absolutely biblical, that the family is the future. The family is everything to humankind and keeping everything together. And when I have seen, as I said, the unintended consequences and then outright attack, I've been so troubled. And I spent 21 years dealing with the things that I've dealt with, and I am so proud of everything we did across that period of time. I don't regret 1 second of it. I'm glad that we did it. I hope we contributed to changing the narrative about mental health in America. And I dealt with real people facing real problems, looking for real solutions. And I'm going to continue doing that on Dr. Phil Primetime on Merritt Street Media. I'm going to talk to people who are impacted by these issues that we're talking about, dealing with and are suffering with these issues and are saying, how do I navigate this? How do I get my family to come together and be strong during these times? How do we shut down this tyranny of the fringe and reclaim the values that are so important to America?
Dr. Phil, give us your final thoughts. What do you want somebody to get after they get the book, they get this read? What is your goal for them, the viewers of TBN today?
Well, I'll say this to all of you great and dedicated audience. I think it's as earnest a statement as I can make about it. I'll just ask you to do this. Read this book and answer 2 questions. Number 1, do I have the right message? And number 2, am I the right messenger? And if you answer yes to both of those questions, then I ask for your support. I ask you to stand with me, with Matt, with Laurie, stand with us in pushing back against this tide that's trying to hijack the narrative in America, that's trying to push God off the center and replace it with false idols, false ideology. Just read the book and ask yourself, does he have the right message? And is he the right messenger? And if the answer is yes, it's a call to action, and I ask for your support.